everybody. Welcome to September's live class. And this one, in spirit of getting all geared up for Halloween, I know I am, we're going to be doing some classic Halloween designs. And this one is going to be kept pretty simple. But as we go, I'm going to be giving different explanations and different ideas for either personalizing each one of these, what I would call classic or typical Halloween designs, as well as making them more simple or making them more detailed or advanced. So if you are new to nail art, or if you just love Halloween, or if you love nail art in general, or what have you, I hope you enjoy this class. If you are interested in getting email notifications about all of my future classes ahead of time, I do have my email address listed in the description box below. It's hotpinkzebrapolish@hotmail.com, and just send me a little note saying you'd like to join the email list for my live classes, and then on the next month you will get a notification, and you'll get things like reference photos in advance and ahead of time so that you can have them next to you while we're doing the live class so that you can follow along a little easier. So for this class, this is one that I sent four reference photos for this class. So it's one where you may have wanted to get those emails ahead of time. Some of them don't matter so much, but this one is a little bit more crucial to possibly have those reference photos. Otherwise, if you're quick, on my Instagram stories, I have the reference photos there as well. So if you don't have the email, you missed the email, you can always just hop over there, and it's Hotpinkzebrapolish on Instagram as well to see the stories for getting those reference photos. So the designs we're going to be doing are spiderwebs, pumpkins, and skulls, which are three of my personal favorites. I'm always a spiderweb person, and I love skulls. In fact, I have little spiderwebs on my eyelids right now. My daughter was super excited today when we were doing Halloween makeup because she's just so ready for Halloween. She's like, is it Halloween time? Is it really Halloween time? Do I get to wear my Halloween clothes? And for one day in the middle of September, why, yes, she did. So then just really quickly, we're going to go over the supplies. This is another thing that if you get my emails, you would see it ahead of time so that you'd have everything ready for the class. You need some gel base and top coat. If you don't have gel base coat and you're working on practice nails, it's probably fine. But definitely need some top coat. You need your gel painting brushes. I would get a couple. I have some, so I'll show you the ones that I'm going to be using today. So this is one of them. This is the Ultra Liner from Madam Glam. So that's one I'm going to be using. It's a little bit thicker. It's not super thick. And then I'm going to be using this one. This one is a little bit thicker, a little bit shorter. And this one is just, I think it's from Born Pretty Store. It's one I've had for a long time, and I use whenever I need to fill a bigger space without like painting the whole nail, but just a larger space. And then the last one we're going to be using today, I think, maybe I'll grab other ones because sometimes I have my whole jar of brushes and I may end up grabbing from it as we go. You never know. Is this one. This is the Detail Liner from Madam Glam. Super tiny. Very, very good for really small details and outlines. So those are the three brushes I'm going to be using, I think, unless I come up with something else. Then you need some background colors. I already have all three of my nails painted just a solid black, just to make things move a little smoother today, because you don't need to watch me paint them black. So I already have those painted black. And then you need some gel paints. And I think the list we're going to use today is black, white, orange, green, yellow, and gray. And I may come up with something else as we go. Sometimes I get inspiration. I'll just grab a different color. So it's, it's a little tipsy here. We never know. But for my gray, I don't have a gray gel paint. So you can either mix it with white and black, or I'm going to use this gray gel polish from Madam Glam, which is the color Painting Dreams. All right, so those are basically the supplies. You're also going to need a nail curing lamp. I didn't write that down. I figure that's pretty, if you're going to use gel stuff, you need a lamp. I also didn't write down that you're going to want something to wipe your brush clean with, so I have that as well. But everything else should be pretty much all ready. So the first one we're going to be doing is spiderwebs. So this is the spiderweb reference photo, or half of it, since it was such a big photo. I kind of tipped it over, that we're going to be using. And before we get into actually painting it, I want to point out a few things about the reference photo that you can see. So all of the lines on this photo are evenly spaced. All of these, like the big main lines that everything is based off of, are evenly spaced. That's not necessary. They don't have to be evenly spaced. They don't have to be the same length. They don't have to be the same thickness. You can have fun with that. Spiderwebs are so versatile. There's so many different types of spiders out there. and they all make different kinds of webs. So while the reference photo I chose because I'd say it's the most, I don't know, the thing that pops in your head, this evenly spaced looking web is beautiful and gorgeous and classic looking. It isn't even realistic, and it's not something that you have to follow it that way. So that's the reference photo I chose because, like I said, it's, it's kind of like that classic image, and I didn't want to do something that was like, I don't want to do a real spider web because there's so much little detail in there. I wanted to keep it simple, but I also just wanted to make sure that you don't get the impression that it has to be perfectly spaced and, flawless, because it'll actually look more realistic if it isn't. And then the other thing that I want to note that's probably a little bit more crucial than anything else when you're painting a spider web is those little lines that like swoop between all of those main lines. Pretend that they're curving in towards the center of the web. So you don't want them to be straight necessarily. I personally, that's more of a personal preference thing. I don't like it when they're straight. And you definitely don't want them to curve away from the center, so it's like circles. You want them to either be, if you prefer straight, they can be straight, or you want them to curve in towards the center. Like the center is the source of gravity, and all of those lines are being pulled in towards the center. So that's what we're going to go over for, I guess, thoughts on a spider web before we actually get into painting it. And now, without further ado, let's paint this thing, right? All right, so for your spider web, you can paint it any color you want. And you know what? I'm already grabbing a different brush. That's funny. Here I was saying I had all my brushes planned out. We're going to be using this one too. This is the Long Fine Liner from Madam Glam. I don't use that one as often, so I didn't think about it. And for our color, I guess the color I had planned when I was, getting all this stuff ready to do was white. And I think we are going to go through with that. But for a spider web, you know what? Forget that. We're going to use something fun. We're going to use orange. Why do something classic, right? We're going to use orange. So this is the orange gel paint from Madam Glam. I love these gel paints. These are the best ones ever. You guys are probably thinking everything I'm using is Madam Glam tonight because this video is sponsored or some other nonsense. Not the case. I just am truly a fan. So there we go. There's our orange gel paint. I stirred this rather recently, so I'm not going to bother stirring it. We're just going to get right into this. So dip the brush pretty much all the way up to where the bristles end. Give it a little gap, but then brush off the extra. Especially when you're doing a long liner brush, you want it to be pretty well coated. And then I'm actually just going to kind of get the gel paint really worked into the bristles. That's going to also give you a little bit better lines than just barely dipping it. You want the bristles to be very flexible and very evenly and well coated. So that's what our brush looks like currently. Nice, smooth bristles. Now when you're doing a spider web, if you're doing this on a set, I like to start in different areas of the nail. So some of them will be like across the bottom corner, some of them will be across the top, maybe bottom, top, right, left, kind of, switch it up. And then if it's a full set, like all 10 spider webs, I like to do at least a couple where the full nail is a spider web. So today we're going to go from the top and kind of have it go like from a corner down across. So we're going to start with the lines, those, the main lines, the straight ones. And our center point is going to be right back there. So I'm going to make sure my paint is still looking good. Place my brush down and then drag it back towards where I want that line to be. And when I'm doing this, I want to point out a few things about my painting posture. This pinky is planted on my finger. It can, finger, table, somewhere, plant your pinky. Otherwise, sometimes maybe that's not comfortable, and maybe it's more comfortable to plant your ring finger. I think you have less range of motion, but I have seen people do that as well. So you just want to have your hand stabilized. So we've got our first line. Get a little bit more gel paint on the brush. I'm going to do another line, dragging the brush back up towards where that first one is. And when you're doing this, drag your brush towards your hand too. So you don't want to be pushing it away, you want to be pulling it. So always pull it back towards your hand. We're going to grab another one, another line, and they're not all the same length. So the one that I just did is the shortest, and then this first one I did is the longest, and that last one there is the middle length, and then the longest. They don't have to be the same length. In fact, it can be random. You could have done them any length at any point. And the more almost sporadic you do it, I think the better it looks. We're gonna add one more just right along what would be the proximal fold if this was on a human. Just strike that right along, almost outlining that top edge of the nail. So now we have our first lines. I'm gonna make that one just a little bit longer, kind of a little bit more artsy too, having it curve around the top of the nail, just like so. So there's our start of our spider web. And then we're gonna grab a little bit more. And you can start with making those swoopy lines either at this center point here, or you can start them at the outside edge. My personal preference is to start at the outside edge. There is no rhyme or reason or right or wrong to that, just what I like to do. So I'm gonna start and I'm just going to curve it and pull it back up. And then once I do the first line, I'm going to go through. I don't like to do like one section going all the way down and then do the next one. I like to do a row. So we're going to do the next one. And then we're going to make sure that we tack this to the outside edge, like so. And then we're going to grab the next line, curve that up and in. And as you're doing this, you kind of get a rhythm for it and it makes more sense. It kind of, you just sort of feel it. We're going to do another line and you can go quicker. And you can place these lines as close together as you like. Like if you wanted, you could even have another one in between. The closer you place them, I think the less easy the design is to recognize because there's so many lines that the little details of it get missed easier. I like to space them out just a little bit. I think it makes it look a little bit more dramatic too. And you can do these spider webs with whatever color you like. One thing I have noticed a lot at the end of last year and already starting this year is there's been a lot of spider webs that are done with spider gel, which makes sense, you know, it's in the name even. And those ones usually have, they're gonna have the straight lines between all these sections. And that's, you know, like I said, that's my personal preference. I don't prefer that. And so I'm gonna hand paint them despite using spider gel as a sort of a cheat sheet there. So we have our full spider web painted and that was it. And so like kind of we went over different ways to personalize it, length of line, where you're putting the spider web, and as far as making it easier or, you know, simplifying it either way, it kind of is how detailed you want to go with it. How many of these first lines you want to put in, how thin of your lines. And so the spider web, I would say, is one of the most straightforward designs, is the most straightforward design that we're going over today. But it is just so cute and one of my favorites. And this design with just the black and orange is going to be on my nails before the season is over. I can guarantee that. So I'm going to put that in the lamp and then we're going to move on to the next one. So our next design that we're going to be doing is going to be pumpkins. And before we go into pumpkins, kind of like how I went over my spider webs, we're just going to kind of look at these reference photos for just a moment. So I couldn't find a reference photo that I loved 100% right off the bat, not right off the back. So the first photo, I liked it because it had a face, and we're going to be giving our little pumpkin a face. And the second photo I liked better because it's a little bit more detailed. There's just a couple more, you know, color variations. It's a little more fun, at least in my opinion. So we're going to be combining these two photos. We're going to be using elements of each one. And I just wanted to kind of give you both reference photos so that you had an idea. And if you wanted to keep it more simple, we're going to start our pumpkin really basic, really simple. And then I'll go through and I'll detail it a little bit more so that if you wanted to keep it really basic and very simple, you have that as an option. So there are cute two little pumpkins, and for pumpkin nails, those aren't even necessarily just Halloween, especially if you don't give it a jack-o'-lantern face like the second photo that I have on there. You could certainly do those all through, I would say, the end of fall without, anybody thinking you're crazy. So pumpkins are something that I reserve a lot of times towards the end of the Halloween season, and especially if I have a client that has an appointment a week before Halloween and doesn't know what to do because do they want to do something Halloween even though their nails will grow past Halloween or not, or some people just, they don't know, their timing is a little off. And in that case, I recommend pumpkins without a face because then they're easily worn afterwards too. So we're going to grab our next nail. The orange is already out. I'm going to switch to this slightly wider, flatter brush. And we're going to paint, I'm just going to put this pumpkin right in the middle of the nail. I'm not going to, put anything else around it. We're not necessarily making final designs, but kind of just getting the basis of the art down. So we're going to make our pumpkin. And what I see a lot of people doing when they paint a pumpkin is doing 3 ovals, which is, I guess, the easy way to do it. If you wanted to simplify this, you could. We're going to do a few more than 3. So I'm going to put one down in the center. And these don't have to be even either. They don't have to be symmetrical. Your pumpkin doesn't have to be the same from side to side. And in fact, if you want to kind of have fun with it and switch it up a little, you can. The one thing I would try to do is make this one in the center the tallest. So then the ones that you kind of go down the line get a little bit shorter, and that will help with the image of it having some curve to it. So there's the next line, and then we're going to do these last ones. So I'm going to do 5 instead of just doing 3. If you wanted to do 3, you certainly could. I would make each one slightly wider than what I did, and then that would work out pretty good still. So after I have these first ones on here, so this first coat I'm going to do, and then I'm going to stick this in my lamp for a minute. Make sure my pumpkin's looking good. I'm going to kind of smooth out some of these bumps just a little bit before I put it in the lamp. It'll get all fixed up and a little bit more professional looking in a moment. This is just the first layer. All right, we're going to call that good. Stick that in the lamp 1 minute. And then while that's in there, I'm going to get out some of the other colors that I'm about to use. We're going to be using the yellow gel paint. And we're going to be using green gel paint. Brown. Yeah, we'll use some brown. Brown. I'm just going to probably end up getting out just about everything. Black. And then last but not least, if I can, there it is. I'm also going to get out this one. This is a darker shade of green gel paint. This is Ugly Ducklings Art Gel in green. This is just a nice kind of complementary color to the one from Madam Glam. Obviously, you could always mix it. A little bit of the green and a little bit of black would get you basically the same color. But if you're feeling like lazy and you're not wanting to mix colors today, then having some extras makes it simpler or more simple, whatever. All right, we're going to spread those out so they're not all in the way. Grab this. That's the wrong one. Yeah, okay. Here we go. I have extra things in my lamp. Got our pumpkin. So I'm going to bring the yellow and the orange to front and center. And if you were trying to keep this simple, just put a second coat of orange over your pumpkin. So if you're trying to not go too crazy with the detail, then just second coat it with orange so that it wasn't splotchy, and then call this a day. But we're going to put a second coat of orange over it, a light coat, a really thin coat over the top of this. Just plop it on there. It does not have to be smooth or even fully cover it. You just want a little bit of wet gel to create a slick surface or a blendy surface. So we have our thin coat of wet orange, and we're going to grab the yellow. Dip your orange-filled brush into the yellow. Don't worry, it's not going to cause too much cross-contamination. Just dip very lightly so that you get a little bit of yellow. And then start on the first one and put that color down a little bit more. Need a little bit more. Put that down and then kind of drag it down the middle. So that's our first highlight. Then we're going to do it again on the next one. Put it down. Try to remember to leave some space between each one. Grab another little bit. Go down on the end. If you end up with too much yellow in one spot, like I'd say that last one is just slightly more yellow than I would prefer, leave that for a second. Go to another spot because you'll still have yellow in your brush. Do that and then come back there after you get rid of some of the yellow in the brush, and then just spread that out and around. So now that we have this done, I'm just going to take this brush and I'm going to wipe it gently on my little nail towel there. And I'm going to grab my brown gel paint. I'm going to do the same thing, dip very lightly into the brown gel. And I'm going to take on either side and I'm going to drag it up the middle between two of the sections. So this is creating some of the, the segmenting of the pumpkin while keeping it very soft. And we're doing all of this working with wet gel, just because if you're working on a client, this is less cure time. It's more just working time, but also it's making it so that that orange gel base is blending in with all of these colors, and it just makes it look so realistic because it's not those hard, sharp lines. It's really soft lines that just blend together. So we're going to do one more of those going on this side, blending that up. And then once you have all of those done, if you wanted, you could do the same thing and bring them down from the top. And any spots where you feel like it needs to, you can do that. I don't want to overdo it. I want to keep most of that brown focused on the bottom area of the pumpkin. And now, because we're not doing anything else right there, I'm actually going to continue working on this. I'm going to grab the green gel paint now. Like I said, lots of colors here. We got the green gel paint. We're going to bring that over. And I'm going to paint the first layer of my stem. So now I like the stem of the second pumpkin image far more than I like the stem of the first one. So this is a case where, you can make it easier or harder. And also I also want to say that the way that I painted my pumpkin is not the way the reference photos show. They're a little bit more even across. In fact, they almost dip down in the center. And depending on the case, sometimes I'll do them that way too. But a lot of times for a pumpkin, I like them this way. This is personal preference again, so do it, how you like to. But this is how I like to do it, so that is how I did it. But we're going to do just a little curl on our pumpkin. I'm going to give it some personality right on the stem. Kind of broaden it at the bottom. And I did switch brushes. This is the Ultra Liner from Madame Glam. So now that we have that, we got our little stem on our pumpkin. As you can see from the second photo, there's adorable little viney curls you can do. You might as well have some extra fun with this. You don't have to go crazy. You can do some leaves on your pumpkins too if you want to have more design elements to it. Leaves are a great way to add pizzazz. And since you already have the colors out to do the stem, you're not really getting out anything extra. All right, so there we have our little vines. They don't show up too much on the reflections of the camera, but you can definitely see them in person. We're going to put this into our lamp to cure for another minute. So one thing that you want to keep in mind when you're working with gel paints like this is you can't just ignore curing, and it's so tempting to, especially if you're used to working with acrylic paint, for me especially, because I can kind of just keep going and going and working and not have to stop and cure. And if you're doing something where you're just doing little tiny thin details, using something like this is a flash cure flashlight, so it just flashes on. Mine is desperate for batteries, but a flash cure flashlight can definitely help. And if you look up, there's different ways of finding them that are less expensive online. Ooh, mine didn't need new batteries. It just needs to be screwed on a little tighter. Look at that. But you can get, if you look for one that's for nails, they're usually pretty pricey. But if you find one that isn't for nails, because I know that, I think it's a urine finder flashlight is the same thing. And then you can use that. I know I have a friend that posted about these, and I'll ask her, and I'll put what she always looks for, and she says they're a couple bucks on eBay then, and that's way to find for an LED flashlight that'll cure gel products. So we're going to be using that too in just a second. So here is our cured little pumpkin. We're going to take this same green brush. It still has some of the green in it. I didn't wipe it out. We're going to go back to the yellow. Same thing, don't clean my brush, dip it into yellow. And then I'm going to just do a little bit of highlighting. I didn't layer of wet green down on this because the colors, it's a little less dramatic between the yellow and the green. So I didn't feel like I needed to have that blend in a little bit, blend in more by having that base layer of green down. So You just go straight into the yellow. Add those couple little highlights. Don't overdo it. It's tempting to for me. Add a few little lines here and there of the yellow highlight on the vines. Like so. I'm going to wipe my brush out. I'm going to grab the brown. So for this one, yellow and brown are our shading colors and our highlighting colors for both vine and pumpkin. So on the stem, you're going to do little lines for the brown. Instead of doing more of a smooth thing, you can just add a couple little lines. They're very fibrous. So just like so. So that part, that stem is done. And I'm going to flash cure this really quick. I don't want to get any of my gel pots in my flashlight's beam. But this way, while I work on the rest of the pumpkin, I'm not worried about smudging this. It is not fully cured. I still have to fully cure it. I'm not worried about forgetting because I know it'll get there. We're just gonna make sure that that is looking good. And then we're gonna give this guy a face. So for me, the face in the pumpkin, the upper pumpkin, is done in brown. And I didn't prefer that. We're going to do it with black. I did like the face though. I thought the face was really happy and cute. And you can go, you know, happy and cute with it. You can go angry and vicious, whatever you'd like. So we're going to do that. The one thing to remember with painting a pumpkin face is you're painting, you have to kind of remember where the little absences are. So like the eyes, you have to leave out the spot on the bottom where the pupils are carved. So we're going to start here. I'm going to paint half circles or half ovals upside down, just like that. And do the same thing on the other side, trying to keep it symmetrical. So if you were doing this and you didn't want it to be Halloween-y, you'd leave off this face. And we're going to add the second line for where that pupil is. Connect the dots. So you're making the space that you're outlining the space that you're painting. Do the same on the other side. And once you have those little outlines done, you can just take and fill in the blanks with your little pumpkin face. There we go. There's the first features. Triangle nose. And then after we have the triangle nose done, we're going to do the smile. One thing I like to do when I'm doing a pumpkin smile is I like to paint the teeth first. So I'm going to do the first tooth over here, and then the second tooth over here. Outlining those first. And then same thing, go from one tooth across and up. Making all of my outlines to fill in. Okay, down across the bottom. And then fill in the space that we created. And at any point when you're painting, if you're not using gel paint and you're using gel polish to do these details, you would have wanted to flash cure after each eye, instead of just keeping going and then doing it all at the end, because your gel polish will start to move on you. Your lines will be less crisp and sharp, and all of a sudden it just won't look nearly as cute as what it had when you were working on it. Okay, so there's our little pumpkin. I am going to stick this in my lamp to cure. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to wipe out all of my brushes. Actually, before I do that, there's a couple spots in my pumpkin. I have a black base on my nail, so I can go through with black gel paint and fix up my lines a little bit. And I'm going to do that. Not much, just a smidge. I think that helped out a bit. All right, stick that in my lamp. And then to wipe out my brushes, I'm going to show you how I'm doing this. So I've got my my little towel, and I set my brush on it, and I fold it around the bristles, and I pull my brush out. And that's all I do to clean between colors. I'm gonna do that for the orange on here as well. Get that out, just like so. Occasionally, if my brushes for some reason seem to be kind of, I don't know, thick and crusty, or seem like they have product stuck in them, then I will use a mix of acetone and some isopropyl alcohol and just a little bit of I like to use the nail strengthening nail polish remover that's acetone free. So I'll mix some acetone, some alcohol, and a little bit of that strengthening nail polish remover to wash my brushes out. I think that combination has enough solvents in it where it just cleans just about everything out of them without completely destroying them, because there's some oils and some moisturizers in it. So that is what I'll do, but I try not to do that. So now we have our little pumpkin. I feel like that one tooth got a little small, so I'm going to go back to my orange, and I'm just going to fix up that tooth. This one right here. I'll probably end up doing it for both, but just make it a little bit bigger, a little bit toothier. Do the same thing. Try not to have to do this, because when you are doing that, there's a little bit of shading that happens in the background, and that kind of gets messed up to an extent. But it doesn't really hurt anything. You'd have to be looking really, really closely in order to see that, if that was the case. Now that we have that done, I'm going to go in with yellow and just add a little bit of some yellow highlights from where it would be glowing on the inside. So choose a side and add it to that side. That's another problem I have with the reference photo I picked. The highlights are kind of all over the place. So I'm going to always go on the left side of my pumpkin. I'm going to add the highlight right here and right there. So that's the first one. And we're going to do it on here. And across the smile. And then that will be it for our little pumpkin. So now I'm going to put this into my lamp to cure once more, and we can work on what I would consider the most fun one, which is going to be our skull. So there's our skull photo, and I've used that exact skull reference photo so many times, because every time I look for a skull reference photo on the internet, I am immediately drawn to that one. And there's a couple reasons that I'm drawn to that one. It's really dramatic, and when I'm looking for a reference photo, I like images that are dramatic, because I think that it's easier to replicate them, because there's so many different shades and colors to go to that you can see, that you can then translate to your art. So I like that it has the really distinct white areas and gray areas. It has fairly realistic proportions, which I'm in favor of. And it also is not a real skull. And I think that helps in this case, because the colorations on a real skull aren't exactly what we think of in pop culture so much. They're, it's a little bit more brown tones. Eye sockets actually aren't black. They're just a little bit shaded in. They're darker, but they're not this, drastic black. And if you wanted to do something that was a real skull, obviously get a reference photo of a real skull. But if you want to do something that's a really cool skull, it may be not a real one. So this is the photo that has always just been my favorite, and I use it constantly. Every Halloween, I always have that one saved to my phone so I can go back to it. And that is what we are going to be doing today. So we're going to be doing our last Halloween now. I'm going to move some of this other gel paint to the side, get out the white. The white I'm using this is going to shock everybody, Madam Glam's white gel paint. Open that up, maybe. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'm going to go back to this bigger brush that I was using before, and we're just going to start working in the basis of this. Like you saw what I did with the pumpkin, how I fixed up the black background afterwards. You can do the same thing with the skull. So we're going to fill this nail basically with our skull, or just about. We're going to start out with the cranium. Bring that around. Don't try to leave the eye sockets blank. Just get a basis of white across this whole thing. Yeah, so just don't worry if there's, something that you painted in that you'll have to repaint black later. Every time you're doing a step, you're getting yourself closer to the final result. You're not going to see the final result with your first coat. And I just want to emphasize that. So then what we have is you have to imagine eye sockets, and then they have the little cheekbones that come out. So we're going to add our cheekbones coming out like so. Then you have the lower mandible. And then it comes down across the chin. And it finishes in the middle. So as you saw, as I was working on this, I was kind of going from left to right, not just trying to do this side and then do this side, keeping it even and checking my work back and forth to make sure that it was something close to symmetrical. It doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical, but just in the ballpark of symmetrical. I'm going to give my jaw a little bit more sharpness. So once that first coat is done, we're going to pop this into our lamp. All right. I don't know, has anybody else just found that over the past couple years, Halloween designs have gotten a little less dark as what I have done tonight? It just seems to be like a general theory that things are getting to be a little bit less dark, and seems like there's less black. I don't know. I noticed that last year. Not so much with what I do, but with what a lot of people did. Things were like, pastels. I saw a lot of pastel Halloween things, and to me, Halloween isn't pastel. That just seems like an oxymoron. But, to each their own. So I'm going to put a little bit of this gray gel polish on my palette. I'm going to use, that's going to be in the next phase of things. So there's some of that color on my palette. If you did want to decide to make gray with gel paint, you would have wanted to mix about, I don't know, 80% white, 20% black, give or take, for a nice medium gray. So here is our little skull. And I know I said the gray was the next phase. We're actually going to kind of work in the basis of some of these shapes. You don't have to do everything. You don't want to even paint in all of the details because that would be too much for this moment. We're just going to kind of get started. So I'm going to look, and I'm going to base my eye socket placement off of the cheekbones. So maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you can look at this image and see that, okay, the eyeballs are about halfway up between the top of the skull and the bottom. It's about halfway is where the bottom of the eye sockets are. Maybe that's what's going to help you. So I'm actually going to use that as my idea here. So we got halfway up, but right there, that's the bottom. Same thing on this side, halfway up right there, that's the bottom. So then you're going to look at how close they are to each other, their proximity. You got to leave a gap. So we're going to add a little bit there, a little bit there. Okay, drag that down. And you're also going to see that there's a flat top to these. Now, different skull photos you look at are going to have different shapes. There's a lot of cool ones out there that are meant to look very evil, and those would not have this flat. They would come up. They'd come up and then go down, if that is what you were going for. So then we got our flat tops, and then it kind of is a little bit almost squared off, and it comes around. Do the same thing on the other side, a little bit squared off, comes around. I found just there that mine aren't quite evenly placed, so we're going to bring this one just a little bit more towards the center. Pick it up slightly. There. So now we have a start to our eye sockets. They don't have to be perfect. I don't know how many times I'm going to stress that this evening, that things don't have to be perfect, but it is so true, and something that I really hope you don't forget is that your art does not have to have, it doesn't have to be completely flawless. It doesn't have to look exactly like anyone else's or like a reference photo. You can look at a reference photo. It's a reference. It's not, it's not the rule book. It's an idea. And so when you're looking at your reference photos, try to take them with a grain of salt and add your own flair. And I'm going to add a couple little lines in here and there that are going to help later on. And so I'm just sort of figuring out which ones I need throughout this and add those in. And any lines I end up don't needing can always be painted over. So in terms of skill for this class, the spider webs would be the easiest, the pumpkins, the middle, and the skull is going to be the most difficult of these particular designs. Not that, any of them are lesser where you couldn't do them by any means, or that you shouldn't do them or shouldn't try them. But the skull has the most steps to it. And if you were to try to simplify the skull, I have personally painted and I have seen so many cute ones that aren't realistic whatsoever, where you do a circle for the top of the head, a little bottom for the teeth, you do a couple circular eyes, a little upside down nose, and then you just make a little ladder type pattern for the teeth. And it goes so quick. They're so cute. And if you were thinking that this one might be a little bit too, I don't know, detailed for you, maybe that would be a way to go, to try one of those. All right, so now we have some of this done. I'm just going to fill in some of those spaces that I left up till this point. I'm going to fill in those eye sockets. If you wanted to speed up the filling in process, you could switch to a larger brush. For me, it's getting another brush full of black gel paint, so I'm not gonna. We're gonna leave it just like that. I'm not going to do the teeth quite yet. I'm gonna leave those. Well, maybe I'll do the first line of them going across. I'm gonna leave the rest of that until later. I'm gonna put this in the gel in the curing lamp for a minute. All right, so while that's curing, I'm going to just take and close up some of these gel paints from the past designs. If anybody has any, I know I get product recommendation questions all the time. If anybody wants just kind of a full review, there's a few brands I use constantly. And if you watch my videos, you hear me talk about them all the time. I use Madam Glam stuff and Double Dip stuff for basically every single design on my channel. And for those two brands, I always put the color names in the description box below. And the reason for that is because I use them so much, I get lost as to what it is that I used. Whereas some of the other brands, I have fewer of them. So if I know I use something else, I can, deduce what it was easier. But the main reason I use those brands with such frequency and enthusiasm is I thoroughly enjoy using them. And it is nothing, it's not, I'm not paid to use them. Not anywhere biased, I don't think, at least in any way, shape, or form. It's just they really do have great products, and I just really like using them. So there's that. So here we go. We're going to go back through with our gray gel paint and the slightly bigger brush, or gel polish, it's not gel paint. Now we're going to start filling in our shadows. So we're going to do the side of the skull here. It is one of the first places. Go back and forth each side. And then there is some shading around the top of the skull, kind of around there. Same thing on the other side. And then I'm going to go just kind of, brush that out a little bit down the center. Go around the nasal cavity. Sort of bring that down to where the teeth are going to be. And the more you wanted to shade this in, you could have different shades of gray. You could mix some black in, some white in, get some different variations. You can really go crazy in the detail department with this skull. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to keep this what I would consider workable for a salon if somebody came in asking me for a skull, where I would be able to fulfill that request in an average amount of time for what my designs take without going crazy. Add the gray on the bottom there, right across the bottom here. And then just kind of a little bit with the teeth, add a couple little lines. Okay, so now that that's done, I'm going to put this back in my lamp, but because this is gel polish, not gel paint, it's a little bit less. It's only 30 seconds this time. stick that in. Bring the white gel paint back. So these last steps are going to be with the white and the black. Again, this skull, while really cool looking, isn't quite as detailed or as smooth looking as a real skull. So if you wanted to have more of that, real skull look, I would definitely get a reference photo that was of a actual human skull, and then do some more blending than what I intend to do here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my white and I'm going to just kind of re-highlight some of these areas that I want to be kept. I want to have that nice bright white look to them. Anything that really needs to stay vibrant, we're going to add another little bit too. All right, so then the bottom of the chin should do that. And this time, because that was a pretty thin coat and it wasn't over the whole thing, I am just going to flash cure that. And everything else to this point is just going to be skinny little lines, so it won't have an issue fully curing. Bring the black gel paint back to the party. And then we're going to start adding our detail lines. So these lines are the fun ones, or what I think of as the fun ones. Your design goes from not very easy to kind of define and see to super detailed in really very little time. I think this is the fun stage. Adding these few little detail lines. I'm going to give my skull a little crack on the head. It's one of my favorite things to do. If you watch past skull videos of mine, you will see I almost always make them a little bit cracked on the noggin. All right, we're going to do our teeth. So this is what I mean when I said a ladder type look for the teeth. That's all you would do for the teeth in the simplified kind of cartoon cutesy look. Outline our teeth all the way here. The top teeth are rounded to a point. Add some more lines coming down. Just like that. And then now that we have it this far, I'm going to flash cure my skull again. Get all of those black lines we just added in solidified. And then one final thing to do before this one is done is I'm going to brighten up those teeth. Back to the white. And then after this, we're going to give it one more full cure. But that will be it. All right, looking good. So I'm going to pop him into the lamp, and then we can apply some top coat, and this is going to be the end of the night. And thank you so much to everyone who's been commenting. I really appreciate it so much. And as far as just Nadia saying that you suck at gel anything, practice. I used to despise gel painting, and I would avoid it like the plague. I just couldn't stand painting with gel. But a lot of it is products. If you're using products that you don't like for one reason or another, even if it's something that somebody else loves and swears by, if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. So finding the right texture of gel could be a big part of the process. So that needed another 30 seconds. We're going to bring these two back onto the scene, grab some top coat. Oh, not that one. So I don't know what this is. I don't know, maybe some of you other nail geniuses out there can answer my question. This top coat has been like spreading on me, and it's just this bottle. I've used other Kupo top coats and this brand and everything, and I've never had an issue, but it's like as soon as I put it on, it's almost like oil and water. It like spreads out and separates and creates these weird little bubbles. So this particular bottle is my nemesis. I don't know why it's doing that. I did a client and I put the top coat on and I flash cured it before I could do that for each nail. So that's fun. So here's our 3 Halloween nails. Which one is your guys' favorite? I don't know. For me, I'm really partial to the skull. I think he's so cool. We're gonna apply some top coat to these, and then chit chat with you for a moment though. This top coat on. I love top coating. It's such a satisfying experience. You get to see all of your work, especially over the skull, because it'll smooth everything out and he'll look absolutely fantastic. All your hard work is complete with one final little swipe. Yeah, very enjoyable. One of my clients says that this is the magic part. She always watches really closely. She likes to see the magic happen. All right, so there we go. I'm going to put those in the lamp. All right, thanks for joining me tonight. I had fun. I love Halloween. I'm so excited. And I don't know if anybody noticed my nails. I'm going to show them to you quick while we're waiting for that stuff to cure. I have some Jack and Sally nails. This is going to be one of this year's Halloween tutorials. And I've done Jack and Sally nails before and they weren't, I don't know, they weren't up to my standards, I guess. So I'm really excited about these. That video will be up come October. In fact, I think it's pretty early in the month too, first week. But yeah, so I'm really excited for October. I have more videos planned for October than typically, not typically for October, but you know, standard months. I'm going to do 5 uploads a week is my goal instead of 3. So you guys have extra Halloween nails, mostly because I just can't decide on what Halloween concepts to do. And I'm always making plans and schedules and things for different months and ideas that I have. And Halloween always fills up so quick, so I like to do some extras. But I can show you the final designs of all of these. This is our live class. I had so much fun. If you guys want to sign up for email blasts of all of my live class for the future, send an email to hotpinkzebrapolish@hotmail.com and you will get the live class explained ahead of time. Otherwise, I do leave these up. I do leave all of my live classes up, so if you missed any of them from the past, I do have links to those in the description box below, so check for those, especially if you wanted to go back and watch the gel video, if that's something that is not your strong suit, I definitely would recommend the gel live class if you haven't watched it yet. There's helpful tidbits in that for sure. But otherwise, have a great night, everybody. I'll see you next month. Bye.